So welcome all to the session today. So my name is Samuel Kadima, and I will be coordinating the session today. And our speaker for today is Jeffrey Omondi. He's going to take us through infrastructure as code, and it's going to be an engaging session, and there is a lot to learn. So fasten your seatbelts and expect a lot of insights. So yes, Greg, I can see your hand is up. So, Greg, go ahead and speak. Was that a mistake? Greg Kilonzo. Okay, so we'll proceed. You can type on the chat if there is any issue. Just type on the chat. I'll be able to respond to it. So I will proceed. So we have a quote for the day, and the quote is better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. Than a minute too late. Yeah, so it's better 3 hours too soon than a minute too late. So you better, if you're doing something, if, let's say you're working on a project, you better purpose to deliver earlier than to deliver even a minute late, because if you deliver late, you'll not meet the expectations and the people who are involved will not be happy. If you are meeting someone, you arrive in time. Yeah, then you better arrive earlier than to arrive late. So on our agenda today, we are going to have an icebreaker, and then after the icebreaker, we are going to learn about the community, and then after that, we'll invite our speaker who is going to speak about infrastructure as code, its benefits, and then share with us about the popular tools, and then is going also to do a simple demonstration and then give us the next steps, after which you're going to have the question and answer session. So I will start by going through the icebreaker. So the icebreaker question here, you can respond on the chat. Would you rather get a low-paying work from home job or a high-paying work from office job with long working hours? So you can just respond on the chat. So I'm looking at the chat. Can respond. So Ebenezer says work from home. So remember, work from home does not have good pay. So anyone else? Is there anyone else? You can just type on the chat. Roger says office all the way. I can get maybe 3 more people responding, some ladies as well. Akuya says home always. Okay. Lynette says home. Peter home. And then Duncan says Pesa any day, especially Rootonomics. So I don't know what Rootonomics means, but Georgina says high paying office job. Brian says go to office and use extra to pay for therapy. Then Brian says office with the money. And then Dev Nano Computing says home, room for gigs. Okay. Then Katusime says office, I need money. So yeah, it seems people have mixed feelings about that, but most people are saying home. So you guys, most of you don't like money, or maybe you already have money, so you just want to get busy. So I will take you through our community. What is our community? Our community is the Nairobi DevOps community, and it's the community that has organized this meeting. And we have these online sessions weekly. amongst other events that we do. So our mission is just to create a supportive and inclusive community that values diversity and supports learning and growth. Our vision is to be a leading DevOps community in Nairobi and beyond, driving innovation and empowering professionals to excel in their careers. And we do several things, including events like this, just to ensure that our members can get empowered and also provide an opportunity for the experts in the community to be able to share their knowledge. So in case you're not part of the community, I encourage you to join, whether you are a beginner or you're a person who already is experienced, you'll still find a place for you in the community. So you can join us and you'll be able to contribute or learn. So there is opportunity for both and the network as well. So in case you want to help us, you can help us in running workshops. You can connect us with other professionals who can add value to the community. You can give us feedback and tell us how we can improve, how we run the community. And you can share our posts and also post on our channels. So in case you have some experience or you've come across something, maybe you encountered an error and you debugged it and you managed to solve it, you can share in our community that other people can also not go through the same problem. They can be able to solve it. So you can also help us in organizing events and maybe even in branding. So if you're gifted in, you can create posters, logos, those such things. You can create any marketing material. You're welcome to join us and help us in reaching out to more people and so that they can be impacted as well. So at this point, in case you're not part of the community, you can scan any of the codes here and join the community. You can join the LinkedIn, WhatsApp, and Twitter. Those are the most active. So join either of them or all of them. You can join all of them. And there you'll be able to see the updates of the things that go on in the community. You'll see when we post events or any other thing that you are doing in the community, and you can be able to participate in it. So that is it about the community. And now I would like to invite the speaker. So Jeffrey, at this point, I welcome you to introduce yourself, and then you can pick up from there. So in case anyone has a question, you can keep on typing on the chat, and I'll be responding to them, and anything that is maybe shared for our speaker, we will be responding to them at the end of the session. So welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Jeffrey Omondi. I'm a software engineer. I also work as a DevOps engineer at Greenspoon, Kenya. And first of all, thank Nairobi DevOps community for giving me this opportunity to share the knowledge that I have with you guys. I'm hoping we are going to have an insightful and a very engaging session. Yeah, so I think I'll move straight into infrastructure as code. So let me share my screen. Yeah, so infrastructure as code. Topic today, that's what I'm going to discuss. And first of all, before I dive into the actual infrastructure as code, I would like to share some concept, like it's a game settings concept. I think like some of you have interacted with computer games that consume a lot of resources. Maybe FIFA, maybe Euro Truck, I don't know, like you know them. So I've interacted with Euro Truck Simulator. So when you're playing the game, like during the initial stages, when you first launch the game, to create a new user profile, you're required to do a few setups here and there, like select settings and any other kind of user related setting that you might need on the game. So I think when you open Eurotrack, for example, you put in your graphic settings, the brightness and such kind of stuff. So like imagine if you had to do this every time you wanted to play this game. Like when you play it in the morning, you have to do this setting. You play it in the afternoon, you have to reset this again. You play it at night, you have to do this again. So you'll see that doing this manually will maybe irritate you and make it a very tiring process on your end because it's a manual process. Yeah. So now we'll dive into infrastructure as code, and then we're going to compare it with the actual um, game setup process. Yeah. So what is infrastructure as code? So infrastructure as code is just the practice of defining and managing your infrastructure through machine readable configuration files. So you realize that traditionally, like setting up IT infrastructure involved a lot of manual configurations. Like you had to go through several interfaces, clicking buttons, typing commands here and there, and doing a lot of work just to set up an IT infrastructure. It was a bit tedious. So infrastructure as code changes this concept, and it gives us a way of writing a recipe for our infrastructure so that when you run your recipe, it instructs your systems to configure themselves to match uh, your actual desired state. So I would say it's just a way of automating the management and provisioning of your IT infrastructure. So basically, this is just what I've said. It involves writing code to describe your servers, your networks, your storage, and any kind of any kind of component within your IT infrastructure. So like that single recipe that you've written becomes the single source of truth of how your infrastructure should look like. So every time when your code is executed, your IT infrastructure assumes that state. Yeah. There's a diagram here, shows a staging environment and a production environment. Then there's some infrastructure as code stuff on the left. Then below it is a version controlling system. So like basically your staging environment is like a clone of your production environment. So like in most cases, you run your tests on the staging environment, you build on the staging environment, and then the production environment is now the actual environment that your intended users interact with. So infrastructure as code comes somewhere inside this entire process. So that's why we are actually having this discussion about infrastructure as code. So every time when you want to set up your staging environment, you can use your configuration file to put it in the actual desired state. Again, you can use the same configuration file to put your production environment in its desired state. So it kind of makes it easy for you to experience, rather have the actual feel from your production environment, staging environment without worrying about resources and how the DB has been configured and like all that stuff is taken care of by your configuration file. So how's life before infrastructure is code? Like there's a lot of manual configuration, definitely. Like you had to make changes directly on the servers. You had to go through some graphic user interface, and you had to run certain commands one by one. And then there's a Snowflake environments issue. Uh, just something that I was explaining before I moved into this slide, like having some inconsistent variations within your staging and your production environment. And then deployments are time consuming, like you have to set up every infrastructure from scratch, step by step. So it was a bit slow. And then there was limited scalability, like you couldn't easily replicate your environments across regions for testing and such kind of stuff. Yeah, so as you can see, life before IC was a bit laborious. Like system admins would need to directly interact with each server, installing software and working on the settings and troubleshooting any kind of issues that could come up or something. So like most environments are a bit inconsistent. And this was a bit painful when you want to provision new resources because like uh, you can't scale out your operations quickly. So yeah, it wasn't really an advantage. Um, yeah, and other challenges as well with life before IC, they were error prone. Like there are so many mistakes because you are relying on the actual manual steps. Then replicating the environment was also a challenge. And then there wasn't an inconsistent documentation and you couldn't collaborate easily, like due to the differences in um, the configurations of the environments. Yeah. So like maybe something would work on one environment and not work on another environment um, because of the configuration differences. So collaboration was even a barrier. Yeah. Because you can't replicate whatever another person is experiencing on the environment. Um, yeah, so severally there are between teams, and development cycles are a bit slow. So mostly people are doing more firefighting instead of actually working on the project that they're supposed to. Like you spend more time debugging and doing so many stuff that are not adding value directly to your project or whatever you're working on. Yeah. So why does ISC really matter? I think I'm making it look like it's more about convenience, but I think we can also look at it from another perspective where we are unlocking a new level of reliability, scalability, and efficiency in how you manage your IT resources. And there's a lot of reduction in the way you, okay, rather there's a lot of reduction in misconfigurations. And also there's a clear history of any changes made to any of your environments because you can actually do some version control on your configuration file. Like you're able to track the changes, see who did what and who did not do what. Yeah. Um, so this is the power of ISC: consistency, speed, version control, and reduced errors. So I'll go through each and every one of them. Uh, so you'll realize that infrastructure as code ensures that every time you deploy, you get identical infrastructure. So like every time you make a deployment, you your staging environment and your production environment are identical. Remember, your staging environment is on this side, and your production environment is on the other side. But they have to be identical. So every time you make a deployment, you get an identical set of infrastructure. And then there's that aspect of speed. So like you're able to provision very complex stuff at the same time and at a massive scale. And then version control, you're able to track your changes. You're able to collaborate on working on the actual configuration files. Like you can easily revert to a previous version if needed. Say you've made a deployment and something has gone wrong. Using your version control system, you might be able to access the previous version before that version that led to that error. and then like you just spin it up, or you eliminate that error like, immediately. Yeah, and then you also reduce chances of errors that come as a result of the manual procedures that we were discussing when we began. Yeah, and then we will go through some of the tools of trade that I used. Infrastructure as code. Yeah, there are so many tools out there. So like they focus on different things. Some focus on provisioning your raw infrastructure. Some focus on the actual software configuration. Some are software specific, like you can only use them on certain environments and other applications.
Have noted that since the beginning, I wasn't people of the so it's more Eric in front of the camera and you behind the camera. And I can tell you for a fact or some content um,
Sorry for that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I was saying like we have different tools that are used for infrastructure as code. Some of them focus on rope infrastructure provision or provisioning. Others focus on software configuration. Some are provider specific, like you only use them with certain environments or certain operating systems or something of that sort. So I'll go through every category just so that we get to understand the different kinds of tools that we have that are used for infrastructure as code. Yeah, so for provisioning, so maybe I'll just explain what provisioning is for those who do not know the difference. Um, so when you decided that now you want to come up with a staging environment and you want to come up with a production environment, and um, you're looking at the kind of resources that you need. You're looking at the number of people you're going to be interacting with within each and every kind of environment that you have. So it's at this point that you basically plan on how you're going to do your stuff. So it's some sort of a technical provisioning process. You decide you're going to use this on this, you're going to use this tool on this tool. So we use Terraform, we use AWS CloudFormation, we have a Google Cloud Deployment Manager. They just take you through the actual tools within these platforms that you might need for whatever you're trying to do. We have Microsoft Azure Resource Manager, and then we have configuration management tools like Ansible, Chef, Puppet, SaltStack. So they mostly deal with installing the software packages that you need, configuring the files, and ensuring that your servers adhere to the desired stage once the infrastructure has been provisioned. And then we have hybrid tools, like these are tools that they mostly blur the line between provisioning and configuration management. And most of them use the general purpose programming languages that we know of, Python, Go. Then we have other tools, like these other tools are a bit software specific. So Vagrant is one of them. Actually, Vagrant is not really an IS tool like the rest, but it's used mostly to develop your local environment. It's like virtual, okay, it's like VMware, yeah. For those who have set up virtual environments on their machines. So Vagrant is an example of tool that you can use to set up those kind of local virtual environments. Another one is Multipass. Didn't add that. Like for those who are using Mac, I think Multipass works better than Vagrant. I've had challenges using Vagrant on Mac. And then I think we'll do a simple IAC demo, a bit straightforward. So like we'll try to set up an S3 bucket. We'll try to set up an Amazon S3 bucket using Terraform. So Terraform is mostly used to set up and manage your infrastructure in a decentralized way. Yeah, so I'll stop sharing my screen, and then I'll start sharing again because I think I'd shared the slide, but I need to share the whole screen now. Yeah, so I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see, but it's too small. Maybe you can zoom a little bit.
Okay.
I think that is fine.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so with me here, I have a React application. It's a simple React application. And I intend to push the files to an S3 bucket on Amazon. So the first thing that I'll do, I'll download Terraform. I think I've already installed Terraform in my machine, so like I won't have to go through the process again, but maybe can just do it again for anyone who might want to see how it's done. So you've downloaded Terraform that is a bit that is specific to your machine. If you're using Windows, you'll download it from here. If you're using Mac, you download it from here. So once you've done that, you run these commands. Yeah, if you're using Mac, like in my case, you run these commands, and then Terraform automatically initializes. I think it's not really a long process compared to setting up other tools. Then you go back to your project, and the first thing you'll do is Terraform init. So we'll initialize Terraform inside this project. I've already done that, but we can always redo it. So it says Terraform has successfully initialized, so that I can use Terraform within this project. And then I'll write my configuration files now, the ones I was telling you about. So on Terraform, we use main. Yeah. So I have a configuration file here with me. So I'm setting up the provider here, rather I'm declaring the provider from this place. And then the resource that I need from AWS. And then it's a website. So I'm doing the resource configuration from here. And then the index document. And then my error document will be here. So we have some variables here as well. The region, if you want to modify the region, I can do that from this place. Okay, I won't really go through the HCL syntax. Terraform uses HCL. So HCL means HashiCorp Configuration Language. I think HashiCorp is the company that is behind Terraform. It's open source. So like they have the defined syntax, which is HCL. So I really want to go through this syntax. Do that on a different session. But it's a bit straightforward. Like you just define your variables from here: variable region, variable bucket name, variable index document, variable error document, and then we are making use of the same variables on our main configuration file. So like we're calling the index document here, the error document, the buckets, but we've defined them here. Yeah, so I think we can make a few changes on this file so that we see how Terraform does now the actual infrastructure provisioning and stuff. So I'm changing the bucket name. Yeah, so I've changed the bucket name. So the next thing I'll do is Terraform plan. So Terraform has 3 stages. There's the configuration stage, then there's the planning stage, and then there's the execution stage. So what we've just done is the configuration. Then now Terraform needs to show us like what are we adding, what are we removing. So we'll now use Terraform plan. Yeah, so there's some file. There's some file that Terraform uses to manage the state. So like it's able to see if there's a change on your configuration files. So here's the state file. That's the version, shows the mod type and everything. Everything that happened during your previous execution stage. So like I was trying this and this was my previous state. So it will compare the current state with the previous state and it tells you what you need to change and what is going to be changed and what will not be changed before you actually execute it. So let's just give it a moment. As it does that, is there anyone who has a question?
If you have a question, you can raise your hand. Anyone with a question, raise your hand, or also you can type on the chat.
Yeah. Okay, or a comment then.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah, when a comment will work on the chat. Are you guys enjoying the session so far? So there is a question here from Ebenezer who is asking, is it bad practice to add the state file to version control?
Yeah, I think I believe it's not a good practice. Because remember, you're running this on your specific environment. But again, I think it also depends. But personally, I normally avoid adding the state files into my version control, because everything relies on your main configuration file. Yeah. I don't know why this is taking long. Okay. There's a question. SIPs wants me to go through the main and the variable files again. Yeah, so I was saying, like, the main file is the main configuration that Terraform uses to provision your infrastructure. And then the variables file, variables.tf file, is where you define the variables that you want to use inside your main configuration file. It's like a .env file. In this case, it's called variables.tf. Yeah. So I'll go through it again. So there's a provider command there. Like, you define your provider from here, but then inside here we are using the variable for region, which you've defined inside our variables.tf. SIPs, I don't know if that is clear now. Then the actual variable files, now you define actual variables. Like in this case, we're defining our region inside this variable. Yeah, so I think our command has been successful. So it tells you what will be replaced, what will be added. In this case, our plan is making 2 additions and no change at all. We'll be destroying 2 features. So probably our bucket will be removed because we've renamed the bucket. And we made 2, like we had two instances of the change within our configuration files. So it is going to destroy the previous bucket. So I'll run Terraform apply. Oh. So it's refreshing the state again before it executes the configuration file. Any question or any comment?
So I think here on the chat, there is still Another question from Peter is
Mhm.
asking, can you combine the deployment of infrastructure together with deployment of the system?
Okay, what does it mean by system? Maybe.
What do you mean by system? Or did you mean the infrastructure and configuration? You meant infrastructure and configuration. So I think that is what he meant. So if you can,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So about combining deployment of your infrastructure together with deployment, I think from where I sit, I think when you have the right DevOps, rather when you have the right culture, you're able to make that decision accordingly, and your entire process will be defined. Like you know at which stage you're going to do your deployment, and you know at which stage you're going to do your infrastructure provisioning, and you know at which stage you're going to be building your stuff. So I think the building of your actual infrastructure and your deployment are two different things, because you have to ensure your infrastructure is running accordingly before you deploy your actual system. So I believe if you have the right DevOps practice, like you take care of this accordingly. Yeah, that's my take. I don't know what someone else has to say about that. Sam, what do you think about that?
So I think it's possible to deploy both, to combine, but it's not best practice.
Yeah.
So as you've said, I agree with you.
Any
So
other
I
question?
think yeah, there is no other question.
Yeah, so our S3 bucket is still creating. I think once it has created, you'll be able to list the S3 buckets, and you'll be able to see our new S3 bucket together with the previous buckets. So maybe maybe from that question, maybe I can clarify something about Terraform and your actual deployment. Terraform comes in at the infrastructure setup stage before you deploy your application code. Always remember that Terraform just automates the creation, the actual creation of your cloud resources and makes it predictable. And that's why you're able to have consistent production and like a consistent production and staging environment. And then like during the deployment process, Terraform feeds only when it's provisioning your resources. Like you've defined the necessary infrastructure for hosting your applications. Like in our case, you're using an S3 bucket. Maybe you can configure other services like CloudFront, Route 53, if you have a custom domain, any kind of access policy or access management. Terraform can do that for you. Like in our case, if I wanted to, if I wanted to, if I wanted to add an access policy onto that bucket, like I can be able to do that from this file. Just that I hadn't prepared to like do an actual Terraform demo because we have other tools as well. Yeah, but you can be able to do that from your main configuration file. Yeah. So like the typical workflow Um, okay, I'll answer that. So like this is what a typical workflow might look like. You write your Terraform configuration file, you initialize your Terraform commands and stuff. You review the changes. That's what you do when you're planning. And then you apply your configuration by executing. And then you build your application. Like there are other building tools, whether you use your build tools to build your application, you compile it, and then you push it to wherever you want it to. Like you now push it to your actual infrastructure. And then you deploy your application. So it really doesn't handle the actual uploads of your files, but it's only responsible for provisioning and managing your infrastructure. Like it's okay, how do I call it? It hosts your code. Like it ensures that your code is hosted appropriately. Yeah, that is what Terraform does. There's another question. If Terraform is similar to AWS CloudFormation. Okay, I'm not sure if Terraform is similar to AWS CloudFormation. But Terraform is widely used because like you can use Terraform alongside other DevOps tools, and it's also open source. You see, AWS CloudFormation is specific to AWS, but you can use Terraform with Google Cloud, you can use Terraform with Microsoft Azure, you can use Terraform with AWS. So it works with different cloud providers. So we really can't say it's similar to CloudFormation. Yeah. As I can see, our resource has been created. So we have 2 additions. We have no change, and 2 of our stuff have been destroyed. So maybe I'll just list the S3 buckets. Yeah, so we now have NDC demo live, but initially I had NDC demo trial. I don't know if it's still there. No, yeah, it's not there. So Terraform has done that for us without logging into AWS to configure the, or rather to create the bucket and to delete the other buckets. But not that I had initially configured AWS before doing anything. So like that's why I'm able to use like Terraform directly. If you set up the access key, like you get your access key from AWS, your access keys, and then you use the same access keys to set up your AWS CLI. Then after you've done that, you can just use Terraform or any preferred cloud provider. Yeah. Is there any question?
I think there is no other question. So unless there is one, at the moment, maybe somebody can raise their hand or type.
Okay.
And then probably respond to it at the end.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I think we've seen how implementing infrastructure as code can be transformative for how you manage your IT infrastructure. Like just like we've done, we've done a very small presentation, rather small demo, but you can always build on that and come up with a complicated, rather a complex infrastructure. Yeah. So always remember to treat your infrastructure as code as you'll do to any other valuable code. Remember the configuration file that you've written, as I said, like it's it's the single source of truth, and it defines what your production environment should look like and what your staging environment should look like. So it's always good to do a version control on your IAC code as well. So I choose to write it with Terraform. Always ensure that you're doing some version control on it so that you're able to roll back any kind of change that you want to roll back easily without having any kind of challenge. Yeah. So a few resources that maybe one might want to read through. There's terraform.io. From terraform.io, you might be able to go through the Terraform documentation. There's Ansible, CloudFormation, and Puppet. I think those are the three most common IoC tools that you may want to go through. Yeah. So you may visit these websites and just get some nitty-gritty syntax and some small techniques. Yeah, and also you can join Nairobi DevOps community if it's your first time, and you can learn from other industry experts who are already using ISC successfully. Yeah. I think that's all from me, unless anyone has a question or a comment.
So I see Anthony raising his hand. So Anthony, you can go ahead and speak.
Mine is a question regarding Terraform versions. Have you maybe faced challenges? Let's say you had deployed your infrastructure with a certain Terraform version before, then way later you kind of revisit it and try deploying some more, but now the versions have changed. So yeah, how do you like navigate that?
So is it the version on your code?
The version of Terraform.
Oh, okay. I think if the version changes, then you should run your configuration files with the version that you're supposed to run it with. Remember, the syntax might change. Like your configuration files are code files, so versions may change, and you might not be able to get the expected environment if you use a version that doesn't really work with your code version. So in most cases, you should always consider running Terraform with the right version. Just like any other tool out there, like you should always run it with the intended version. And that's why even in a normal or a regular DevOps setup, like if you want to make use of a certain OS and one doesn't meet rather one version has limitations and another version doesn't have those limitations, I think it's at that point that you're expected to use the right version. So I think the same applies with Terraform because you're running configuration files, which are written code. Like they won't automatically change when versions change or something. The syntax might change, or even the actual resources that you are defining might change. Like maybe Amazon has made a change on their end. That would mean you'll have to change the same on your end. So like it's always advisable just to use the required version to avoid such kind of conflicts. Yeah.
Thanks. So like would you say um we keep improving the previous versions to now refactor it to the current versions to keep up also with the changes that are happening in the cloud?
Yeah, I believe that's why DevOps engineers are hired. Yeah, like you're supposed to work on those configuration files regularly, just like you maintain your software product. That's the same way you should maintain your cloud infrastructure. I'm not
Thanks.
sure I've answered you correctly, but
Yeah, you've answered. Thank you.
okay. Any other question?
If anyone has a question, you can just raise your hand and I'll give you the opportunity to speak. You can also type it on the chat.
Someone is asking the repo.
Okay.
Someone wants. Oh, let me just paste it here.
Okay. So is there any question from anyone? Even a comment will work. There is no question. Okay. So I think there are no questions. So you can give us your parting shots.
Okay. I think mine is just simple. I'd like to encourage you guys to do as much practice as possible and embrace DevOps practices wherever you are, like automating your procedures and ensuring that all your processes are efficient and also scalable. Yeah. And there's something that I forgot to mention. Mostly in cloud computing, like most features that you interact with can always be called using APIs. So like these APIs are always in the front of your cloud service provider. So like you're able to build templates using any kind of language that you may be able to interact with that API on. So these templates are mostly the ones that we call infrastructure as code. So if you build your template, becomes an infrastructure as code because it's a code, but it's your infrastructure. Yeah, so I think I'll leave you with that. Always think of any kind of code that interacts with your cloud provider APIs as infrastructure as code. Yeah. That's it from me.
Okay, thank you. So I think there is somebody who has a question before you leave. Maybe you can respond to it. So Brian, do you have a question? So let me allow you to speak. Just a second. You can go ahead and speak.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so I do have a question. So you've talked about Terraform, right? So what happens in the case where, like, let's say you've mostly got on-prem? Because from what I know, you'll find most companies tend to have mostly on-prem servers. Because truth is, they tend to complain about cost when it comes to cloud. You'll realize, usually you'd have a setup where if the systems are the most critical systems are on cloud, things that have an SLA of like 98, 99% SLAs will be in cloud. But you find that the other softwares, the other applications, usually you have on-prem servers, you have some sort of on-prem setup. So for on-prem setup, what's your best option for that?
For on-premise servers.
Yep.
Okay.
Or other local cloud.
Okay, I might not be the right person to answer that because like I'm not so good at the like data center stuff and the physical on-premise servers. Yeah. I don't know if there's anyone who can give us an answer to that.
Okay. Is there anyone? So you're asking if you can use Terraform to manage on-prem servers. Is that your question?
Okay, my question was more of just trying to get a suggestion on maybe the best alternative, or rather the other alternative. Because okay, the thing is, Terraform usually is for the cloud. You see, okay, so for the cloud, that's where Terraform shines. Of course, you'll wanna connect it to your like AWS or maybe Azure or yeah. But when it comes to on-prem, for on-prem servers, okay, so currently, like what we do is usually just we use Ansible is what we tend to use to provision setups and all that. So I thought maybe I just wanted to get his idea of that. Maybe if he had an idea on that, how to work around with that.
Okay.
But Ansible too still works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ansible does a good job there.
Okay.
Okay.
So you want to respond to it, Jeff?
Okay.
I think
Anthony has
okay.
something.
Okay, Anthony, you can go. Yeah.
So I guess for on-prem could be different. Let's say if you're running your on-prem environment and you're using a hypervisor like VMware, or or if you're using OpenStack, you're able to use Terraform for those environments. So there are Terraform configurations that you can do for your VMware environment if on-prem you're running virtual machines on those servers. Also for OpenStack as well. For directly running on the hardware, I don't think maybe you can use Terraform. Yeah, I think Ansible would be the best bet as you're currently using, unless maybe Sam has anything to add.
Yeah. So I agree with you on using Ansible, and also because Terraform probably shines mostly when you are creating infrastructure in the cloud. So it won't be very applicable in your on-prem servers. But if your goal is just to be able to manage your on-prem servers, then Ansible can sort you there.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
I think Ansible, or rather physical servers, or while dealing with physical servers, you're mostly doing orchestration, right?
Okay, not necessarily. So, okay, of course, for the orchestration, of course, for the containers, not everything runs other containers. You'll find so on the physical, of course, you've got the hypervisor, just like Anthony said. Of course, yeah, you've got the hypervisor, and you use it to. Okay, so usually the hypervisor, you'll be doing it manually, see, because you'll have the guys on the IT operations team. Oh, hi, we need a server that has these specs. So you see, usually they'll have to be doing that manually with the hypervisor. But see, the thing is, you're trying to do away with that. So that's where, like on the cloud, Terraform will do that. So instead, you automate that with Ansible. So use Ansible to provision that server, but then it's only once we've got the server now there where you do the orchestration inside it, because now with that you'll be running your containers.
Okay. I think either way, I'll still agree with what Antonia said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allow me to share with you a link that can help. I think this is in the context of using Terraform with VMware vSphere. In case you're currently running a VMware environment, I think it might be of help. Yeah, but let me see.
Yeah, share the link. I think I'll look at it, but I think some time back we did look at it, but it wasn't that stable. So we didn't really wanna tinker with it on the prod stuff because you got things to run on prod stuff. So just ignored it. But I guess I can look it up again, and maybe they've done some improvements. But I remember the last time we were looking at it, it was still under development and not quite stable. And well, of course, in the financial industry, you don't wanna work with something not quite stable. Just know the enterprise stuff, then something they can trust. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I totally understand. But yeah, you can just have a look and also just test it out and see if it's actually becomes stable.
I think this looks helpful, Anthony. I've gone through it. Yeah, I would encourage every other person to try and go through that example usage with VSPR.
Okay. So I think there is no other question. And I'd like to thank everyone who has contributed to the session by responding to questions and also asking questions. So thank you for the interaction. You've made this session lively. And also I would like to thank Jeffrey for leading us, giving us a good session that was very informative and engaging. So thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you everyone for joining. So we'll be having a Twitter space on Wednesday. So at 8 p.m. The Twitter space will be about the DevOps culture. And I look forward to seeing you guys at the Twitter space. We'll be sharing on our channels more information about the Twitter space. Looking forward to see you there. And Anthony also is going to do a session in the future, probably in April. There is a session that he will be doing with us. I will be informing you about that. So thank you guys. And see you on Wednesday in the Twitter space. If you're not in the community, let me share my screen so that you can be able to access the links to the community. So you can just scan and then you'll be able to join the community. So, and if you're already in the community, feel free to drop from the meeting. Have a good night and a good week ahead.